Hey Algebra 1, so this lesson is going to be a continuation on factoring polynomials. However, we're going to take a look at more complex cases when a becomes greater than 1. Go ahead and start out by writing this in your table of contents and completing the warm-up. Spend about 10 minutes, then come back and check your answers. Alright, let's see how you did. So in number 1, we have x squared plus 22x plus 120. If you remember from my previous video, I taught you the umbrella method on factoring polynomials. In order to do that, I need to connect a to c and drop down b. A times c is going to be 120 because this is a 1 right here. 1 times 120 is 120. Drop down my 22. Then I want to go to my t-chart and figure out numbers that multiply to give me 120, but add to give me 22. If you're thinking about the factors of 120, there's many, right? So we have 1 times 120, we have 2 times 60, 3 times 40, 4 times 30, 5 times 24, 6 times 20, 8 times 15, and 10 times 12. All of these in this column here, those are factors of 120. Now I want to make sure that they add up to 22. 1 plus 20, 120, no, that's not going to work. 2 plus 60, no. 3 plus 40, no. 4 plus 30, 5 and 24, 6 plus 20. Oh, I'm getting closer. How about 8 and 15? 8 and 15, 10 and 12. I'm going to go with 10 and 12 because 10 plus 12 is 22. And 8 plus 15 gives me 23. So that was close, but not close enough. Put those here in your umbrella, 10 and 12. Remember these numbers, these factors that give me 120 and that add to give me 22 are essentially just breaking apart this 22. So if I rewrite my trinomial here, I'll have my x squared, then I'll have my 10x, then I'll have my 12x plus 120. So I'm breaking apart that 22. Now that I've broken apart my polynomial here, I want to go ahead and group my terms together and find the GCF, the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor between x squared and 10x is going to be x. What's left inside when I divide out an x is an x plus 10. Then I have plus over here between a 12x and a 120. I want to think about what can I factor out of 120 and 12. I believe I can take out a 12 actually. That would be the greatest factor. And you can try, use guess and check to figure out what that number is. Remember, you want the numbers in parentheses to match. So this x plus 10 should still be x plus 10 over here. So if I take out a 12, I'm left with on the inside x plus 10. So essentially, if I thought about x plus 10 and taking that out of 12x plus 120, then I get my greatest common factor. That's another way to figure it out. So since these two parenthesis sets match, that's good. I'm going to bring together my pairs that I've factored out, my GCFs. So I have x plus 12 and x plus 10. Now, the question in the warm-up said to factor. It didn't say to find the solution, so this would be my final answer here. X plus 12 and x plus 10. Let's go on to number 2. Number 2 says x squared minus 12x minus 45. Multiply A times C, drop down B. Now I'm going to my t-chart to figure out what multiplies to give me negative 45, but adds to give me negative 12. So this is going to be a little bit more complex. My factors of 45 or negative 45 would be negative 1 times 45, 1 times negative 45, negative 3 times 15, and 3 times negative 15. Then I have, let's see, negative 5 times 9 and 5 times negative 9. So which of these gives me negative 12? Negative 1 plus 45, 1 minus 45, negative 3 plus 15. That's rather close, but I don't think that gives me a negative number because the 15 holds the charge here. So that's going to give me a positive 12. But what about if I reverse it? 3 minus 15, now it becomes negative 12, so I think I have my winner here. Okay, so write those in your umbrella. You have 3 and negative 15. So if I write my new polynomial, I have x squared plus my 3x minus my 15x minus 45. Okay, group and group. This is going to be complex with this negative sign, but I think I can take out a negative sign for both of them. All right, here, so I can take out an x, and I'm left with x plus 3. Here I'm going to have to take out a negative sign. The GCF here is 15. That leaves me with x, and that would be plus 3 to get a negative 45 inside. Okay, so my factors here would be x minus 15 and x plus 3. Alrighty, last question, an application question. Write the expression for the length and width of a rectangle whose area is given by x squared plus 5x minus 24. So if you picked up on here, we're just going to do the same thing. Let me draw you a picture real quick. We have a rectangle and we want to find the area. In order to find area, we multiply length times width. So in order to get the length times width, we already have our area. We want to know what is the width and what is the length. In order to do that, we just find the factors by figuring out what multiplies to give us those numbers, and we can use the umbrella method to figure that out. A times C, drop down B. So I want to find what multiplies to give me negative 24, but adds to give me 5. That would be 1 times 24 and the reversal of that. Then I have 2 times 12 and the reversal of that. Then I have 3 times 8 and the reversal of that. And if I keep going, I also have 4 times 6 and the reversal of that. All right. So if I add, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I want to get 5. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. This is close. 8 minus 3. That actually is 5. So that's going to work here. This will be our winner. You can keep checking if you want, but this should be the only option. So I have negative 3 and 8. When I write this out, I have my x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 24. We want to group the pairs and then factor out the greatest common factor. In this case, I'll have x and then x minus 3. Then in this case, I think I'm going to have to take out a negative sign here. Nope, that's not right because this is the different sign, so it'll be okay just to take out the greatest common factor. How about 8? So plus 8, then I'm left with x minus 3. These match, so that's good. I have x plus 8 and x minus 3. There's my answer. Now that would be the dimensions of my rectangle, if we go back to the problem. Alrighty, back to our lesson. So last week we talked about factoring trinomials. When we're factoring trinomials, remember we have zero product property. We didn't have any of these examples in the warm-up, but remember when you're solving for these solutions to our factoring polynomials, you're actually finding solutions of the quadratic, or where the quadratic hits the x-axis. These are intercepts. So if you look on the left, it says x equals -2 or x equals -5. Further down the road, we're going to take a look and see how that looks on a graph. For now, you just need to know those are solutions as well. So if it's asking for a solution, you need to take it further by using zero product property. That essentially means to take these solutions you found, set them equal to 0, and solve using inverse operations, what we've learned at the beginning of the year. You should usually get 2 answers. However, in some cases, it might differ. Like if we look in the pink here, it says x equals 0. Because x doesn't have a pair versus x plus 7, if I rearrange that when I'm solving for my equation, I get x equals -7. So another idea that you need to know before we move forward is that we have this idea of A, right? I keep repeating A times C drop down B. Where do these letters come from? Well, in quadratic formulas, we have something called standard form and vertex form. What we're referring to is called standard form. So if you want to write down these formulas, they'll be helpful in a later lesson as well. However, right now I just want you to know that standard form is just exactly what we've been using. And you can even think of that standard form as what we learned from writing polynomials from highest to lowest degree. And you can see in blue, that's really what it is. Vertex form is another way to write a quadratic formula, and we can manipulate that to find key parts of the graph of a quadratic function. When we're writing in standard form, it's important that you know what A, B, and C are. So in this example here, we have x squared plus 5x minus 14. In this case, A would be 1. Remember, there's an imaginary 1 in front of the variable. B would be 5, and C would be -14. It's helpful to identify these so that you know what the relationship is with the numbers. In these examples here, in number 1, we have A is 1 again, because there's no number in front of x squared, B is 4, and C is 3. In number 2, you can see that A now becomes 2 because there's a number in front. B is 3, and C is 1. In the last example, A is 1, B -4, and C is 4. So in these lessons today that you're learning, when I say A is 1 or A is greater than 1, because the method of action here that we're going to learn, when A is greater than 1, so for example, in example number 2, it says A is 2, that is greater than 1, right? So in these examples, it's going to require you to go a little bit further when you're factoring. When A is just 1, it's pretty simple to factor. When A is greater than 1, it's more than 1, it's a little more complex. So example number 1 and example number 2 require you just to do the umbrella method. I'm going to do these 2 examples here. Follow along with me or just review as I go over these factoring when A is less than 1. So when A is less than 1, I have x squared plus 3x minus 10. If I identify these off to the side, A equals 1, B equals 3, and C equals -10. That's going to help me later on, especially next week when I move forward into more complex mathematical ideas. So I know this method is going to be when A is 1. Okay, that's the point there. Multiply A times C, drop down B. So that's going to give me -10 and 3. Multiply 2 numbers to give me -10 and add to give me 3. So I have 1 times 10 and the reversal. I have 2 times 5 and the reversal. That would give me 9, that would give me -9, that would give me 3, and this would give me -3. So you can see our solution is going to be this row here. -2 and 5. You want to write them out. This becomes especially important when we go to examples where a is greater than 1. So if you were skipping these steps here because you saw that it wasn't that useful, now is the time where it's going to become useful when a is greater than 1. Factor an x out in the first one, and this would be a 5. Solutions become x plus 5, x minus 2. So then I have my x plus 5 equals 0 and my x minus 2 equals 0. Pay attention in your assignment if it's asking for just the factors here or if it's asking you to find the solutions. This would be x equals negative 5 and this would be x equals 2. Okay, so next example, example number 2. I have x squared plus 8x plus 16. A times c, drop down b. So I'm going to think of two numbers that multiply to give me 16, but add to give me 8. That would be 1 times 16. I don't have to reverse it because there's no negative numbers in this situation. 2 times 8. And 4 times 4. That would give me 17. That would give me 10. And this would give me 8. So this is going to be my solution here. 4 and 4. X. Oopsies, back up. I have x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. Group, group. Pull out an x, and this one I can pull out a 4. X plus 4 and x plus 4. Bonus points if you know another way to write this. This is one of our special product rules, so I know it's actually going to be a perfect square trinomial. The best way to write this is going to be x plus 4 squared. That's the same thing. Anyways, my solution here would be negative 4. That would be the only one. Okay, so now moving forward, those are when a is 1, right? So let's look at example number 3 here. Example number 3 now has a value that is greater than 1. It's 5. A is 5, B is negative 45, and C is 70. If you take a look here, I also have an X inside those examples. So before you go ahead and begin this umbrella method, you actually want to try to find the GCF before you do that here. So really the end goal is to simplify, 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 simplify until you can't simplify anymore. So before you use this strategy, you want to first take a look at this example. I have 5x3 minus 45x squared plus 70x. I'm going to try to give you some steps here as we go. So 1, simplify with GCF. So before you proceed with the umbrella method, you want to see if you can factor anything out of this long polynomial before you move forward. If you're taking a look and you have a good number sense, you hopefully notice that all 3 of these numbers go into 5. In addition, they all have an x. So I can factor out a 5 and an x, which essentially means that I'm dividing everything by 5x. So I'm going to take that 5x out, and that's going to change everything that is inside parentheses. 5 divided by 5 is 1. X cubed divided by x is x squared. I don't need to put that 1 in front, you know it's there. 45 divided by 5 is 9. Still have my minus sign here. X squared divided by x is just x. 70 divided by 5 is 14. X divided by x is 1. So after I've simplified, I've taken out the greatest common factor. Now after you've tried to simplify and divide something out, now you want to use umbrella method. A times C drop B. Okay? So when I do that, I'm going to multiply just A times C. This 5x in front, I'm not worried about it. It's going to drop down with it, but like I said, I'm not worried about it right now. A times C gives me 14. Drop down B, I get -9. So hopefully by now you have a good number sense of multiplying to get 14, adding to get 9. If you need to do your t-chart, you can do that off to the side. Multiply to get 14, add to get -9. This will be tricky here. 1 times 14, 7 times 2. I know that 7 and 2 make 9, and I know that 7 times 2 is 14. If I make both of these negatives, that gives me a +14 and a -9. So my solutions here are going to be -7 and -2. Okay, so I've done my umbrella method and I have factored my trinomial here. I want to now group. When I group, I'm still going to bring that 5x down, but now inside I have x squared minus 7x minus 2x plus 14. And within these parentheses, I'm going to group the first two terms and the second two terms. After I do that, I still have my 5x here. I'm going to factor out an x, and then inside my parentheses, I have x minus 7. Then I'm going to have plus, nope, I'm going to take out a minus sign here, minus 2 times x minus 7. How did I know I had to take out a minus sign? Well, this is a -2 here, and this is a +14. I know that this and this must match. So if this is going to be a -7 and this is going to be a +14, I have to do a negative times a negative to get me a positive. Okay, so I'm not quite done yet. I messed up my colors here. This is green, this is blue. Okay, so I still have my 5x, and then I have x minus 2 and x minus 7. Remember, you only need to write one of these matching pairs. Okay, that would be my factoring when a is greater than 1. Now, it's not always that way. Let's take a look at example number 4. In example number 4, I have 9x squared plus 12x minus 5. Remember, back to step 1 was to simplify with the greatest common factor. But I think I have a problem here because 9, 12, and 5 don't really have a greatest common factor. 9 and 12 both go into 3, but 5 doesn't go into 3. 5 only goes into 1 in itself. 9 and 12 don't go into 5, and if I take out a 1, it's just the same thing. So unfortunately here, I have to now multiply, go to step 2 where it says to umbrella, a times c, drop down b, and factor. It's going to look a little bit different than normal. A times c is now a number. So when I multiply 9 times -5, I get -45. Okay? When I drop down b, it's still just 12. Now when I'm multiplying, I want to figure out what gives me -45. And when I'm adding, I want to think about what gives me 12. Okay? So I have 1 times 45. That has to be negative, so I got to do all the reversals as well. Then I have, let's see, 45 divided by 3 is 15, and I've got to do the reversal. And I also have 45 divided by 5. That gives me 9. And I think I already have my answer here. So if I add, that gives me 44, negative 44, 12, negative 12, 4, negative 4, right? So hopefully you can see your answer here. Negative 3 and 15. All right. So now when I write this out, I have my 9x squared minus 3x plus 15x minus 5. Okay. So I'm going to group here. Greatest common factor. Well, this time 9 and 3 both go into 3. So I can factor out a 3 and an x. Then I have 3x minus 1. Okay. Then here, I know in my parentheses, what happened? 3x minus 1. Then in parentheses here, I know I'm going to have 3x minus 1. So this is kind of like dividing 15x divided by 3x and negative 5 divided by negative 1. 5. There we go. Okay. So you can see these match, so that's good. My answer here would be 3x plus 5 and 3x minus 1. Okay, so now here is my factor. Go ahead and pause the video here. See if you can do 1 through 4. Then join me back when you think you found your answers. So here are the answers for numbers 1 through 4 that you tried on your own. Go ahead and give yourself a check if you got those correct, or follow along here if you want to see how I do them. Couple things actually I want to reiterate here. If you want to check your work, for example, let's say number 4 here, you can use FOIL, but when you're foiling, you leave that 3 alone. I know it's been a while since we foiled or used box method or whatever. Leave that 3 alone, just like how I showed you in the first example, or no, sorry, the third example, where you just drop down the 5x. You just leave the 3 until the end. So you would do your first, outside, inside, last, and then you would go ahead and distribute the 3, okay? So another thing that I want to point out is maybe your answers look a little bit different, but they're still right. So you can write this the reversal way. So let's say you have 2 in front. If you have a number, a constant, you want to put that in front, but you can reverse these. So let's say you have x plus 3 and 2x plus 7. You can write those like that. Or this example, you have 5, and then I would write 2x minus 5 and 2x plus 1. Depending how you wrote your factors, whichever one came first, then that's how your answers kind of show up, but it means the same thing. They can be flip-flopped, all right? So here we go. Proceed with me if you need to check your work. Feel free to fast forward if you only need to check one, and then join me at the end here. So for number 1, you had 4x squared plus 26x plus 42. So remember, step 1 was to simplify by finding the greatest common factor. When I started looking at this, I first thought that they both go into 4, but that's not necessarily true. So then I got to try the next number. How about 2? So they all go into 2, and that's the only factor I can take out here. So if I divide everything by 2, I have 2x squared plus 13x plus 21. Okay, so then when I go ahead and factor, you have your a times b drop down, I'm sorry, a times c multiple, oh lordy, a times c drop down b. Okay, So I'm going to do A times C, drop down B. 2 times 21 is 42, drop down B. Okay, D chart, multiply to give me 42, add to give me 13. 1 times 42, 2 times 21, 14 times 3, and let's say 6 times 7. There we go. That would give me 43, 23, 17, winner. 6, 7. Okay, here comes the more complex part. You still got that 2 in front, but now we have 2x squared plus 6x plus 7x plus 21. Group, 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 group. Common factor, 2 still in front. Then I'm going to take out a 2x here, x plus 3, and plus I'm going to take out a 7 here, x plus 3. Okay, look at that, these match, that's good. Still got that 2 in front, 2x plus 7, x plus 3. Wham and done. Okay, next question, number 2. We have 20x squared minus 40x minus 25. Oh boy, so common factor here. I think they all go into 5. So I'm going to take out a 5. And then I have 4x squared minus 8x minus 5. A times C, drop down B. Multiply to give me negative 20. Add to give me negative 8. Ooh, this one's complex. So I have negative 1 times 20, negative 20 times 1, negative 2 times 10, negative 10 times 2. For the sake of time here, I'm going to stop here because I already see my answer. That's negative 8. So negative 10 and 2. Drop down that 5. And inside I now have 4x squared minus 10x plus 2x minus 5. Group, group. Then we have our 5. I'm going to take out, so let's say 2x. So then I'm left with 2x minus 5. Plus, what can I take out here? Between 2 and 5, the only common factor is 1. So you're going to have to write that 1 there. And you're still just left with 2x minus 5 there. Okay, these match, so that's good. Drop down that 5, 2x plus 1, and 2x minus 5. That'll do it. Next, number 3. I have negative 5x squared plus 8x plus 4. Okay? Any common factors there? No, there is not. None. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed. A times C, drop down B, and factor. Negative 20 and 8. Multiply to give me negative 20. Add to give me 8. 1 times 20, 1, 2 times 10, and there's my answer there, or negative 10 times 2. So this would be my 8, so I have negative 2 and 10. Okay, so I have negative 5x squared minus 2x, and this will be plus 10x plus 4. Group. So I'll take out an x, and I'm left with negative 5x minus 2. And here I can take out a 2. That would give me 5x plus 2. Something's wrong here. You see how these don't match? I need to fix that. This guy negative. If I make that negative, this also has to be negative, and this also has to be negative in order for that to work. So now I match, and I have x minus 2 and negative 5x minus 2. That was a tricky one with the signs. All right, number 4. We have 6x squared minus 21x minus 45. I'm thinking all of these numbers go into 3. So 6 divided by 3, that gives me 2. Take out the 3 first, 3. So and then inside I have 2x squared. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And then 45 divided by 3 is 15. So that did work. A times C, drop down B. Negative 30, negative 7. Multiply negative 30. Add to give negative 7. Okay, so I'll have 1 times 30 and the reversal. Then I have negative 15 times 2, or negative 2 times 15. Then I have 30, that would be 3 times 10. And negative 10 times 3. Okay, that's going to be my answer here, the last one. Negative 10 and 3. Okay, I have 3, and then I'll have my 2x squared minus 10x plus 3x minus 15. Then I'm going to go ahead and group. I have 3 times, that would be 2x, and then inside the parentheses, I would have x minus 5, okay? Plus, here I can take out a 5. Nope, can't take out a 5, a 3. And inside I would have x minus 5. Okay, these match. And I'm left with 3, 2x plus 3, and x minus 5. Done. Alrighty, so hopefully you got all of those correct. Reach out if you have any questions or you need any further examples. The last bit of information I have for you is this quiz. So if you want to try out those questions, send me your answers and see if you got them right, feel free. Otherwise, don't forget to do the Quizlet as well as your HMH online.